But once when that jailbreak didn't happen, I kind of realized this isn't a good situation that's happening, right? Like, it's not a good thing that's happening, but now is what I think about it more than what it was that matters. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Mac man himself, Dan MacQueen. He survived 2 emergency brain surgeries and a coma, and he's here today to let us know how he rebuilt his entire existence with one step and one sip at a time. Welcome back to the Chronic Brew.
I didn't have the strength that I have now. That's when you really need people.
People who could understand.
It really did make a difference.
So finding that community, finding that tribe.
Or in that realm of chronic illness and stuff.
I barely go through it because I'd be so focused.
Never thought in a million years that would have to happen to me.
All those emotions are valid. Yeah. Every last one of them.
I was at a low point.
Just kind of removing the stigma.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Chronic Brew. Music is fading out. I've got my brew ready, and sitting across from me today, well, virtually at least, is Dan MacQueen. Dan, I was reading through your story, and honestly, most people go to the eye doctor because they're squinting at road signs. You went in for a headache and walked out with a sealed envelope that basically flipped your whole entire world upside down.
Yeah, it was a rather abrupt eye appointment, to say the least, man.
Well, I'm definitely glad that you're here with me, man. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Chronic Brew.
Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, so Dan, before we get into the sealed envelope and do all the heavy lifting, especially the stuff that you've done, we have to take our first sip. It's just a quick one question or one thought to get the things running, okay? If you're at your favorite spot and you've had the kind of day where, you just conquered a massive goal, maybe you just finished a big talk or hit a new milestone, what is your victory brew of choice, and what's the one snack that you have to have on the table with it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'd always go with espresso macchiato. Chocolate on the side is a little treat. I'm going to have that this afternoon as well, which is my go-to staple in the afternoon.
Guys, you heard that, espresso, right? Keep that in mind for later. But Dan, let's go back to 2014. All right, let's go back there for a second. You're 28. You're healthy. You're active. You're basically living the life that most of us take for granted, right? Then comes this optometrist appointment. Most of us go to the eye doctor because we can't read the bottom of a line chart. You walked in for a headache and walked out with a sealed envelope and a one-way ticket to the ER. Looking back, what was the most surreal part of that drive to the hospital?
Well, it was a bit of relief to know that we figured out what was going on with my head. Let's go back a little bit here. A couple weeks leading up to this, I was having headaches that were getting pretty predominantly bad and very painful in the head.
Mm-hmm.
On the tube one day, the tube takes zigzag around London, lumbering towards Notting Hill Gate tube station in the District line. Headaches were so bad, my vision turned starry and I saw spots. Slowly started to fade to black. It was a race to see who could arrive at the station first, me or the blindness. Arrived at Notting Hill Gate tube station, stepped onto the platform, mind the gap, and the lights went out. I couldn't see a thing.
Wow.
I want to ask you, man. Able-sighted guy your whole life. You step onto a platform in London and all of a sudden you're thrust into the depths of blindness. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do?
I mean, I'd be terrified. Like, I'm somewhere I'm not really familiar with. I'd be terrified if the lights went out on me just like that.
Yeah, that's a good response. And I'll tell you what I did. And that's freeze like a statue. And I thought, and I thought, and I thought. I wish I could say I had a good answer to how to get out of this pickle. I did not. After 3 minutes, the longest 3 minutes of my life, my vision comes back. And I carried on my day. But the next day, I went storming back into A&E. Now, A&E is accident emergency in the UK, like ER in Canada, United States.
Mm-hmm.
I told them what had happened. I was blind at a tube station in London. This is not normal. What's going on? They ran some more tests, and again, then it was vertigo. They sent me home. But on the way out, they told me you could always get your eyes checked by an optometrist, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. At least we got like a next step if this fails. Next day, I had to come back with a vengeance. And I found myself in Mr. Patel's chair. He was midway through the routine exam when he stops the exam. Excuses himself in the room, and he comes back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope he hands to me. He told me to go directly to Moorfields Hospital, which I did. Well, Chronic Brew listeners, tell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by Lee Child, a phone charger to my teeth. Then I arrived at Moorfields Hospital, handed the sealed envelope. They ran the same test there again, then escalating up to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere. I'm thinking, this is positive. This is a good thing, right? Now, it turns out I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous system of pineal gland.
Wow.
causing the pressure mount up, causing the vision issues. Now, it turns out I required emergency brain surgery tomorrow. Now, it turns out my rules have to change altogether. So after frantic back and forth with folks in Canada, the last text message my mom received reads, "I'll see you soon, Mom. Think I'll have a new haircut next time I see you." So Mom's in there flying to London on June 21st, 2014. I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong. I have a massive bleed in the brain hemorrhage. The cyst burst when they operated. So Mom lands and finds I'm in critical condition. I was in a coma for 4 weeks. I was not unconscious for months after this. When all of a sudden I was learning to walk, talk, and smile again. And not fun story, but full circle story. I came back 2 years later and visited Mr. Patel and thanked him for saving my life. And he had the photo of my eye exam in the optometrist's office, which is pretty cool. And just say, man, thank you. I appreciate you. You saved my life. So thank you for catching this, because the NHS doctors, they missed this twice, but they made up for it afterwards with a few other heroic activities. But it was initially misdiagnosed, and it was caused to be so dire and so drastic to have the surgery so quickly.
Wow. I can't even imagine if I close my eyes for too long, I'd start to get a little nervous. But you said you went 3 minutes without having vision. Like I wouldn't know what I would do with myself. And going even further, I know that in your bio you mentioned having no map for what came next. I know that in the chronic community as well, we talk a lot about the medical maze. When you woke up from surgery, what was the first thing you realized was going to be way different than the life you just lived 24 hours prior?
Yeah, well, like you said, I was healthy active the day before, and then, 4 weeks later, I woke up being told you can't walk, talk, or smile. The first thing I do, get me a pen and paper, write down in the pen and paper, because I couldn't talk. My vocal cords were fried from the tracheotomy, so I couldn't talk for the first few days. And write in the pen and paper, I would get me out of here. And showed him over the camera. He goes, "What do you want me to do, man? Your one eye's wonky as hell. You can't walk on your left leg's actually in the coma." But I'm like, this looks expensive as hell. Let's get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But once that jailbreak didn't happen, I kind of realized this isn't a good situation that's happening, right? Like, it's not a good thing that's happening, but now is what I think about it more than what it was that matters. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. That's a stoic through line I use a lot in my talks, and I believe this through my core. I made myself jump on that bandwagon right off the hop. No pity spiral, no woes me, this isn't fair. Because you're right, it's not fair. But guess what? No one's coming to save you. So it was a mindset shift above anything else that got me out of the pickle. And it's a mindset shift that gets me through the pickles today. It's like, if that's the first thing that cascades for you, it trickles down to everything that you do, right? The mindset is so important for this. I get to do this. So now that's not to say that rehab was easy. It was arduous, difficult, strenuous. Like the first time we went in wheelchair took 45 minutes. Next week I tried to do 40. Week after 35. Then 30. Small, achievable goals that I can hit, only 5-minute window of difference. But I busted my tail to make that work because I wanted to show some progression, some develop, some drive.
Right.
It was arduous, difficult, but it was done by small, consistent action over time that compounds. Now, it's not easy to do this, but it's simple to decide that's what I'm doing. So don't get overwhelmed with what the task is at hand. Pick a small task you can accomplish, hit that task that week, and then ratchet up the next week. That's the new baseline. And then ratchet up. You're familiar with what a ratchet is, right?
Yeah. You said something really powerful there. This is what you get to do. If anybody's been listening for a very long time, you would hear me describe getting my diagnosis like me walking down the street and somebody just throwing a Letterman jacket on me and saying, "Here you go, take that." And I'm like, "I don't want this." I'm like, "Too late," and just kept running. Right? You get to do this, and not just do it, but do it with to highlight strength. Just going back to that first wake up, you had to relearn how to walk, talk, and even smile. I think people underestimate how much ego is involved in that. Okay. My question here is, how did you handle the frustration of having to practice things that used to be automatic?
Yeah, it's a good observation. I think it's humbling, right? Like, I was humbled to my core. Life came pretty easy before. Like, I tried hard, but I pretended I didn't try hard on the surface. I was always like this cool guy that never tried that hard, but I did secretly. Now it's like I can't do basic shit. I can't get in the wheelchair. It's like I can't even put on my pants. I gotta shower with wheeled in the shower in a wheelchair, man. Like, how degrading is this?
Wow.
And it just drove me nuts. So like, I hit rehab with a fury that like, I'm gonna get on my feet and get back to doing things I couldn't do before, or I could do before easily, because I'm the person that does this. I made an identity for myself, the hero in my own story, I call it. And I just tried to live with that guy's hero's journey every day. What would the hero do right now? Well, he would do this. He would try to go 5 minutes faster. He would, say I can do this without help this time, or, try and fail. Failure is so big for this, right? I failed a lot, and I still fail quite often. I'm not immune to failure, but being comfortable with failure is so important for growth and improvement. If you're not failing, what are you doing? If you're not trying and not stress testing it to the limits, I'd rather you fail going big and then rein it back into a level you can hit than never reach your potential of what you can possibly do. Now, don't go to something stupid and hurt yourself and blame it on me. It's not my MO here. But stress test this stuff, right? If you're not pushing up against failure, you're not trying hard enough. Failure is a really important word, and my friend Rial calls this first attempt in learning. And by failing, you're pushing up against what your boundaries are and what your threshold is. But failure is the root of all growth.
Dan, I commend you because you're dropping so many gems that I feel like a lot of people struggle with radical acceptance, where you just have to just accept what's going on and make this the catalyst to push you forward. That's a real tough one that a lot of us struggle with in the chronic community. One quote that was just recently told on the show was, "Things don't happen to you, they happen for you."
Yeah.
What an eye opener. I saw that and it felt like somebody flicked me in the eye. I was like, what? Where was this all my life? You said, and this might sound wild to some, that a brain injury is a great way to refocus the mind. If we're sitting here with our coffee, what's one thing you use to stress about before Dan that after Dan just laughs at now?
Well, I do a simple exercise for this, and it's control the controllables. So write down on a list of paper everything that's stressed you on your life. Take 5 minutes to do that. Draw a line underneath that, and then draw a line down the middle of that section. On one heading, write uncontrollable, the other heading, write controllable. And just start divvying them up into those two categories. Then take a pen and cross out uncontrollable and focus on what's controllable. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. I live by this mantra. Calling myself stupid, not your listeners, of course. But I go through life now. Can I control this? If yes, do something about it. If no, I punt it immediately. In the past, I'd probably get stressed out about things outside of my control. Now, I keep my world very simple. I'm very routine-based, better than yesterday kind of vibes. I always try to tinker with stuff until I get mastery over it. But it's about understanding what you can control, what you can't control. Make your world small. Make your routines basic. Make them consistently repeating them day in, day, week in, week out. But ratchet these things up so you get to a point of mastery in each of these categories. But focus on what you can control and what's outside of your control, because it's a waste of time and energy. And you got limited bandwidth for the day, right? You got 100 units of energy. You want to spend 50 of them worrying about stuff outside of your control? You're not going to get anywhere. Because this guy's using 100 energy to go in the right direction with everything he can't control. So focus on what you can control and punt the rest is what I would suggest to your listeners.
Hey, this is Rodney, and you're listening to the Chronic Brew podcast.
None of us get through this stuff alone, bro. You're big on thanking your family and doctors, but let's be real. Being the one receiving the care can be hard on the pride. I'll be the first one to admit that I grew up having a mindset, man, maybe I'm just too stoic, right? I don't like to feel dependent on people. I think a part of that falls on, I don't want to feel like a burden, especially when other people have their lives going right now, and this is my burden to take on. I cringe at the thought of giving my burden or load to someone else. But like you said, we could never go through what we're navigating alone. How did you learn to be a good patient or a good, I don't know, care receiver without losing your sense of self?
Yeah, good question. I think I've always been pretty good at feedback if I believe the feedback's from a good place.
Yeah.
Taking it on board and trying to tinker with my vibe to improve on what feedback I've gotten. When this injury happened, like you said, I was dead to rights. I leaned on support from family and friends tremendously. My family came over to London for 3 years to help me get back on my feet from this and get back to work. Tremendous support. Family visited me in the hospital often. Same with friends. And it's everything, man.
Yeah.
It's everything. And I think that's so key to have that front and center. I realize the way out here, like you said, the way out is through. And I've got to lean into this and not be bigger than the task. The task was getting in the wheelchair 5 minutes faster. That seemed pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
I'm not better than the task. The task is the task. 45 minutes getting in a wheelchair. Think about that from a perspective here. 45 minutes. Set a timer for 45 minutes and then do something else and be like, this whole time I was trying to get in the wheelchair. Next week, do 5 minutes less. I was in a weak way, but I was hungry to improve my lot. And I had a drive to get back to life because I get to do this. One last thing, and then I'll pass it back over to you. But there's this quote I heard. Gary Vee says it all the time. I'm not sure where he got it from, so it's not a statistic that I can reference. But the odds of being a human being are 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1. You're more likely to win the lotto 10 times in your lifetime than you are to have a life in the first place. You get to do this.
Wow.
I'm only Dan MacQueen because this is my DNA. Without it, it wouldn't be me. And I wouldn't trade myself for the world. So this isn't fair? Yeah, but you get to play the hand, man. So don't whinge about the hand. Be about the hand, right?
Yeah. Wow, this is life purpose giving. Because I think a lot of us we forget that. It's one thing to say that this life has been so unfair so far with this diagnosis because everything was stripped away from us, but the underdog story is always inspiring. You know, having cards stacked against you, using that analogy, and then still conquering or showing that you can do this. And of course, it's not just by your own strength. You have that support system. I know that this is conversation that a lot of folks with chronic conditions have. You know, they feel alone, they feel isolated, they feel like everyone has just abandoned them or life has moved on. And then on the other hand, you know, you have the folks who have those support systems, and I think what makes your story so beautiful is that it shows that people can actually be there for people if they really want to. But let's continue though. You went back to work at places like Hootsuite, Hootsuite Tech. You know, it's fast, loud, and intense. Was there a moment when you were back in the office and thought, I have a literal superpower now because of what I survived? Or did it just feel like a grind?
Yeah, good question. I think Hootsuite, first of all, shout out to Hootsuite. They were phenomenal for me getting back to work. They just, whenever I needed, they said, jump how high. They accommodated all my needs and made myself back to work very easily. Now, I had to fight to get my old position back from, like, my parents were like, well, maybe you should take your old position back. Because I just got a promotion before I got the injury, maybe 3 months before, which I worked my tail off to get that promotion as an implementation specialist. Someone who onboards clients and trains them. You kind of run your own show. It's a rock star kind of position, Hootsuite. It was back in the day.
Yeah.
And I love my job, man. It was fun. But I decided that I'm not going to go back to support because I'm an implementation specialist. Again, align my identity with this. I am this person. I'm good enough to be this person. And those first few weeks and months at work were slow, man. Like, I was reading old emails. I was catching up on the product. I was, over my skis big time. But I kept working on it and got myself to a point where I really contributed to the work and the team and really added value. I never go back to full-time at work. I was always 4 days a week, so 80% of my workload. But I was delivering about 90 to 100% of my quarterly goals for, like, as I was working the whole week.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to pay them back tenfold for that help. Now, when I got back to work, look, with a brain injury, there's cognitive fog, cognitive morass. It's difficult to stay focused and on task, but I came with little hacks to navigate my day to make myself through the day effectively. So, for instance, fika, which is like coffee break in the middle of the day from Sweden. I studied in Sweden before I went to London for a year doing a master's there. So fika is a big part of my vibe. So I go for a fika break with a friend, go for a walk, get some fresh air, change environment, allow myself to get through the day without needing a nap, right? When I'm at home, I take a nap 1 hour a day to rest and recover for the afternoon. Whereas at work, I couldn't do that. So I'd have to make up strategies to, like, get through the day without issue. But adjusting to your framework and adjusting to your illness is so important for this. You can't just say, oh, I don't need this anymore. It's like, no, you got to respect the battery, man. Respect your illness. Don't let it run your show, but respect it enough to, like, say, if I don't do this, I'm going to be in a bad way. If I do this, I can make it through the day without issue. So just understanding that, you learn that through trial and error, right? It's not like you're going to know this off the hop. But if you mess up at something, like, hey, don't do it that way again. If you do it again, like, well, don't do it again. If you do it 3rd time, it's like, hey, dude, you know it's going to be an issue. Don't do it again. Like, you got to understand the pattern's going to come up again and again. That's why I'm so routine-based now, is because I want to see those patterns in a very simple black and white format. My weeks are very similar. My months are very similar, like routine-based days of the week. And I tinker with them and constantly fidget to, like, improve the workflow for that day, make the day the best it possibly can be. But it takes me longer to do things than it did in the past. But if you consistently work at it, you can improve your lot and you can ratchet back up. I got to the point where I was at work and I was well regarded as one who delivered value and worked my tail off for the time frame I was at work. And I got two little hacks that I used to make this appear so, or at least make it seem that way. Probably shouldn't share these, but I will share these because a friend of mine gave me these at work and they've been a godsend for me. First one is always act like you're walking around the office with a purpose and you're going somewhere important. Walk with a hustle and a step that people see that you're hustling to get somewhere where you're at. Not because you walk into the coffee machine, but I'm walking with a purpose there and walking back. Step one. Second one is under promise and over deliver. I'd always promise projects like I'll give you 8. When the quarter ended, I'd be like, I got 10 for you. And my boss would be like, oh, they said you give me 8. I'm like, well, I wanted to give you 10. I could do 10, so I want to give you 10. But always under promise and over deliver. Those two rules there help me get to where I'm at in my career and be successful in business and stuff going forward. So I think those are very important things to take on board and incorporate them how you want in your vibe.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's good for us to always look at our condition and say, how can I be impactful or show people that I'm just not bogged down or tied up with chains because I have a diagnosis, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. You also have this hashtag better than yesterday. I love the hashtag, bro. But we've all had those worse than yesterday days too, right? When you're in a slump or your body isn't playing ball, how do you keep that mindset from feeling like a chore or just another toxic positivity slogan?
Yeah, it's a decision a day you make, right? I call this DAD, decision a day. And in my morning routine, I have a cold shower. I end the shower cold. I have a nice warm shower, then I end the shower cold. Nothing heroic here, 1 to 3 minutes, but it's never pleasant to finish the shower cold. It's always been like abrasive, especially the last leg of that. I do 3 rounds of 30, and it just like the last leg, my body's like actually hurting from the cold. But then I get in the shower and I drop. I'm like, I'm fighting the battle for this day. Like I've decided I'm fighting the battle for this day, and that's a reset for my body. The dopamine that's released from this is the equivalent to a key bump of cocaine or tab of ecstasy, allegedly
Allegedly.
this day. But it's a signal to your body that I'm fighting for this battle for this day. And then I just get back into my routine and like get into my push-ups, meditate, and like armor up for the day. But it's like a routine-based thing that gets me going in the morning. But just decide for that day. Not all the days, not every day of the rest of your life, just tomorrow. And then just the next day. But then stack the wins for that day. I've got a Whoop strap, which counts my rest, recovery, strain. I love this thing, man. It's like my temple with this thing. I love tracking scores and stats and sleep scores and exercise. I can see how I'm performing based on my rest and recovery. Rest and recovery is number 1, 2, and 3 for me. If I don't sleep well, I punt everything until I get rest and recovery under control. Because with the brain injury, the fatigue is so much of an issue, right? But you have to do what works best for you. And then yesterday is kind of that vibe that I can track this on the Whoop strap. I can see how I did yesterday versus today, and like, well, how I did last week because I didn't do this new habit from last week. Is there a market improvement? Yeah. If yes, you keep it. If no, I punt it. But tinker. It's a constant tinkering factor and a constant ratchet factor where you see the worst and you hammer that. But it's on you to kind of distill this stuff down and understand these patterns and be better than yesterday.
Be better than you were yesterday. You talk to big companies about action-oriented life hacks. If someone is listening right now and they feel totally stuck in their own recovery or struggle, what's the smallest, most Dan-approved move they can make today?
I think mood follows action, so get into your body as best you can. That could be a walk, it could be a yoga, that could be push-ups, it could be swim, gym, whatever works for you. But mood follows action. Like, I work out like a maniac now. It's moved from vanity, like my own ego and my own image, to more sanity, to keep the anxiety at bay. But I think exercise is so key for this, and it really helps me to exercise the demons that hurt and that like torment me. So I swim 3 times a week in the pool, anywhere from 40 to 100 lengths in the pool. Oh, those laps no matter what. No matter what. Save one exception. If there's a backstroker in my lane, I can punt the lanes entirely and go directly in the sauna. I got especially with backstrokers, man. Don't get me started with them.
Those backstrokers.
But I've proved that I can do this week after week, month after month. I've done this stack of evidence to do what I say I'm going to do. So you want to build that stack of evidence that says you do what you say you're going to do after days, weeks, months, and years, and watch it grow, watch it scale. But outwork yourself, don't, by proving you do what you say you're going to do by building that stack of evidence. I'm going to walk for 1 block this week, 2 blocks next week, 3 blocks next week. I'm going to yoga for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'll do a harder session this time. Like, it's about ratcheting it up to a point where you're happy with it. You want to be the person that you respect, the hero in your own story. So that's a long-winded way of saying get in your body, mood follows action. But like, it's not just go for a walk for 1 block a week and you're fine. But, you got to ratchet it up and improve this thing, right? Scale it. Aim small, miss small, and ratchet, and grow this up to a point you're happy with.
Again, being better than you were yesterday. All right, Dan, before we hit that final stretch, we're going to do what I call the espresso shot. Remember, you talked about liking espresso, so this is going to be fun really quick. I'm going to throw 5 rapid-fire questions at you. Don't overthink them. Just give me the first thing that hits your mind. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready to go.
The best Get Moving song on your recovery playlist.
Oh, I forget the name, but it's the Kanye West song that goes with the piano. What's that called? You know what I'm talking about? Runaway.
One word to describe that feeling of your first walk outside the hospital.
Bliss.
Early bird or night owl?
Neither. I'm pretty routine based, man. Like I try to keep it under, up around 8 o'clock, in bed around 10:30, 11. So like I'm trying to keeping it level there, man. So I'm neither these days, but was once a night owl. Now we're a morning person, so it's a bit of a mixed bag.
If you could have a brew with anyone, living or dead, who's sitting across from you.
Ooh.
There it is. 30 seconds on the clock.
I say probably Joe Rogan.
Last one. The better than yesterday habit you never skip.
First cup of coffee in the morning, man.
First cup of coffee in the morning. Shot finished. Shot is finished. Now, this is our final sip, the last stretch for the interview. Your mantra, is about the response being more important than the event. If you could sit down across from that 28-year-old version of yourself, the one holding the envelope and feeling like his world was ending, what would you say to him to let him know it was actually just beginning?
Oh man, that guy's got no idea what he's getting into. I'd tell him, look, man, the road ahead's gonna be tough. It's gonna be difficult. Remember this one phrase: "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it matters." And live by that to the day you die. And that right there will bump you up when things are tough and tiring and difficult. But I consistently tell myself this when things bad happen, even now. Still, it's like it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it matters. And if I can embody that right off the hop, I'll be in a much better space than I was.
Dan, that was a heck of a note to end on. Seriously, man, thank you for being so open with us today. I think anyone listening, whether they're dealing with a health battle or just a really tough season, I think anyone listening is walking away with a much better map than they had 30 minutes ago. Before we finish our brew and head out, I know people are going to want to find you, whether it's to bring your story to their team or just to follow the Better Than Yesterday journey. Where's the best place for listeners to find you, and how can they get in touch?
Yeah, thank you. I got a new website, MacQueen Dan, MacQueen Dan.com. It'll be in the show notes. Before we end the story for the session for today, can I share 2 stories with you about the best and the worst memory of the hospital?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. So let's start with the worst and then with the best because it's better to end on a positive note than a negative note. The worst story I had in the hospital was I was getting my eyes checked by an optometrist. Another one. I've had lots of optometrists in my day. She goes, track the pen, follow it down. When you can't follow, let me know. No vision from the brain. And I go, well, I can't really track that because the no vision makes it very blurry. When that goes away, I should be able to see that just fine. She goes, oh, that's not going to go away. And I said, excuse me? And she goes, yeah, it's not going away. But I never heard that before, right? First time being told this is for life, and she just goes, oh, it's for life. You just have this, like, this is my life, man. I'm like, screw you. And I said, don't ever treat people as a patient first and a person second. Always a person first and a patient second. Humanity is so important for this. The words you use matter. Now, the best story I've got from the hospital, my GP ends falls for the first time. With my dad in the waiting room with a cane and eye patch. I'm pretty crunk, but I'm still walking in there. He goes, Dan MacQueen. I go, yeah, over here. And I walk over with the cane. And he goes, in front of the whole waiting room, he goes, Dan, I read your file. Clink, clink. I thought you'd be a wreck. Clink, clink. And I go, Jens, I'm sorry to disappoint you. So that just kind of goes to showcase the lively nature we had with Jens and I. But a person first and a patient second was his lifestyle and mantra. And that makes all the world of difference. So, like, if you've got medical practitioners in your world, just remind them that you're a person first and a patient second. Because that makes all the difference when you're struggling with stuff and you've got a hard hill to climb. Like, a person first and a patient second, always, always, always.
Yeah. And if anyone does have great PCPs or just folks on the medical team that recognizes their humanity, don't forget to say thank you. These are the folks who are actively working to help keep us alive continuously. So thank you for sharing that. And of course, we'll make sure all of those links, your link, your new website link, and your social handles are all there in the show notes so that everyone can find them with just one click. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. And to everyone listening at home, at the gym, or on your commute, thanks for joining us for another round of the Chronic Brew. Remember, it's not just about the brew in your hand, but the response in your heart. We'll see you next time on the Chronic Brew. Peace out, peeps.
Cheers.